Gee, looky there. That's a nice John boat. It's all fancy and new looking. Would sure be a shame if this boat was just left in somebody's lawn as an ornament to rot. Everybody knows who I'm talking about. It might even be you. If it is, stop. Stop what you're doing. Sell it to somebody who wants to mod it, or mod it yourself. For heaven's sakes, think of all the fish you could be catching. You could be getting your PB right now off your own custom-made bait. Sure, it's going to be a little work, but it costs pennies on the dollar for you to rebuild it the right way so it lasts and you won't have any long-standing boat payments. A boat of this quality is actually really expensive in today's time, really making it tough for anybody to get one, but if you're willing to build one, I'll show you it in 10 minutes. FYI, there's a much longer video on this boat, but this video is actually part of our 10-minute boat build series where we just go through everything, the core of it, in 10 minutes for people who really don't have an hour to watch a whole video. But if you like what you see here, we have a much more extensive video and even a whole video series on this boat along with all the other ones here. This is why you should restore a John boat like this. For one, this is a dirt old boat from a different era. They just don't even make them like this anymore, and it has things in it that are rotted out and bad that need to be gone. But if you notice the aluminum, aside from some slight oxidation from oxygen exposure, it's pretty much brand new. If I wouldn't polish this hull up after gutting it like so, then you wouldn't even tell that it was that old. Fortunately, things like this happen. They put marine foam board in there, but it's not sealed and just looks like Swiss cheese and soaks in water. There's also generally corrosion problems with John boats like this. For whatever reason, it's always in the back around the transom or around where there are foam pockets. So, I mean, like anything, you got to cut the transom out first in these boats. After you gut it, the transom's got to go. It's just best practice to replace them. They were treated plywood back in the day, and when that gets mixed with water, which always wedges between the aluminum sheet there and the wood, oxidation and pitting like this happens, and sometimes it's extremely severe like this, to where you got to wonder how you're going to fix that. Also, poor drainage. This is from a different era, no spines, so we had to put holes there. And we're going to put an aluminum transom in here because aluminum on aluminum, clearly the boat has been around for decades and decades, so this transom, after we patch all those gross, corroded holes, should last the life of the boat in theory. Normally you can get away with thickened marine epoxy to patch those holes inside the new transom, but because they were so grossly bad, I had to weld some of those. There was no way around it, but normally epoxy can fix the small pits. So I started another best practice after gutting, I don't know, X amount of these, is no foam in the subfloor of these flat bottom John boats. No more. So I attached that subfloor right on there. No foam underneath. That means we're gonna have to replace the foam. You can't just not put foam in the boat. So here we're forming the live well and the back hatch, and the sides around it we generally will use for pour foam, where we like to pour foam the four corners of each boat to make it extremely hard to sink. Also, if you're looking at putting a steering console, side console, center console, any sort of console in the boat, the cheapest way to run a steering system is a rotary steering system. And then obviously the throttle shift cable system. The rotary steering is good for motors about up to 50 to 60 horse. I think around 60 it starts to get a little stiff, and I think at 75 and above it's unrealistic. You need to start looking at hydraulic steering, which is way more expensive, but you know, the bigger the motor, the more problems, you know how they say. This is going to be an all aluminum build because we're doing this boat for the long game. It's going to be put under extensive tournament use, and we just know for a fact that the only thing that lasts in these boats after all the decades of use is the aluminum hull itself. So theoretically, aluminum on aluminum, aluminum transom, aluminum frame, aluminum decks. The boat should just be extremely robust. Yes, even with a riveted frame, because the boats of old that have lasted like 3 decades only have like 1 rivet per foot, and this one has 1 rivet every 3 to 4 inches in the major sections, making it pretty robust. We've never had one of our frames ever fail riveted. Obviously welding's better. So in sections we will be welding where we can't rivet. I mean, you could do all this with rivets, it would just be far less sophisticated and maybe a little weird looking, but everything we're doing here could be accomplished with rivets except for this console. You do kind of have to weld that stupid thing. I welded my own console because all the aluminum consoles online that you could just get were just really unimpressive. But later on we found out who RPD was, and they made a 1422 side console, which would have saved me a whole lot of headaches. That thing was really a pain to make. I will never do it again now that I know who RPD is. And though I try very hard to not have to make a hatch, there's always some situation where I have to fabricate one. Nothing else will make it. I can't like order this. It sucks to make hatches, so I always try to use Nate's custom, like powder coated drop-in dry hatches. They just drop right into the frame hole, like the hole size. Boom, flange hangs over, you rivet it to the frame, you put the deck around it. It's the easiest thing ever. Yeah, they're expensive, but they last forever. They're all aluminum, and they're our most popular item, honestly. We're gonna go and just cut these out with the sheet metal pack that we give for the decks, and we'll get back to that later. But right now we got to figure out what we're gonna do with the rest of the steering. So we're using a rotor steering system. It's a little stiff sometimes with like the larger outboards like the 50s and 60s, but it still does really well. It's extremely robust and almost never fails, and it's the cheapest option by far. The only major concern is getting the throttle shift cables and the steering cable the exact length you need it. Like, I had to get an odd shape. I actually had to buy 3 different steering cables to make this weird length because it was not exactly what the stock one was. Then I also had to make a custom shroud and an area there. That's another thing with that RPD console. It comes with a wedge to mount the throttle shift control on, but I had to make my own vertical spot there along with that shroud. And as far as painting goes, we roughed up the exterior with, I think, 60 grit. Got it pretty gritty. Self-etching primer the entire thing. Pretty good coat of it. Normally self-etching primer with spray paint is what we would do, but it is very not robust. So the way for self-etching primer to do its job and be pretty good is if you put a very robust paint over it. And the thickest, most durable paint that I can just get at the hardware store that will work in any marine environment, even saltwater, is oil-based enamel from Rust-Oleum. So I went ahead and rolled and tipped that paint all over the boat, gave it 2 solid coats. And what's good about that smoke gray or whatever it's called is they make an equivalent spray paint, the exact same color, and I just use that to paint the helm here. It gave it just a more clear look where it's a little bit more orange pilled on the actual hull. But they all came pretty clean. Other than the fact that that gray is kind of like weird looking. The hydroturf we're going to put in this boat has almost the same shade of gray, so it'll all work. You just have to see it. It's part of a bigger, bolder strategy here. With that side console there's really no room for an actual rod locker, but there is room for rod tubes going into the front deck. Now, this is a pretty common modification. There actually was a bootleg version of this before we got to the boat, but it had something similar and we just made it a whole lot nicer. There used to be a live wall right there, but we ended up turning that into 3 actual storage compartments since the boat has very limited storage. So batteries and chargers and other things will be stored underneath the seats and in that middle section. And we are installing a bottom conduit there because I didn't really think through how we would even get the trolling motor wire from the trolling motor through the cab into there. So that was just a piece of tubing we stuck in there, and that's very, very easy to overlap with the turf once we get it out. We're also using, obviously this is a budget build, using budget lithium batteries. Power Queen has been kind of a prominent one out there. And, well, it wouldn't be complete without an onboard battery charger. So, oddly, the middle part of the boat is mostly done. It's now the front and the back. They cannot be completed without actually adding the flotation back. So, we made a big, huge U-shaped chasm in this boat. That's all that. That's quite a bit of pour foam. We poured it in a large quantity. That's like a gallon or 2 gallon bucket. The more you pour, the better the expansion, because the more heat and action happens there. So you get the max expansion for the max 2-pound density of the pour, and that's where you get the most actual reserve buoyancy and the least weight out of the whole thing. Then all those panels that we cut out earlier with those templates, a few hours and a million rivets later, they're all attached. Voila, now we're ready for the EVA foam. In this case, we're going to be using HydroTurf Cut Groove Camo. This is our TBN camo color, but literally all the camo colors are extremely robust. I do mean surprisingly robust in that it takes a lot of abuse for being foam. You would think that it wouldn't be that durable because it's foam, but I'll tell you what, it'll take anything on there. The solid colors are kind of high maintenance because they get dirty really quickly, but the camos, really not a whole lot of maintenance. And you can wash them every once in a while, but other than that, they're pretty much good to go. These are our trolling motor mounts that are pretty universal. They don't need to be welded, but because of the unique fronts having a bunch of odd stuff, it was just easier this way to go ahead and mount it. I do like that it's hollow underneath. That way you're able to take the trolling motor on and off very, very easily by being able to access the hardware underneath. So just painting that thing the same color as we painted everything else, and then eventually finishing off the EVA foam once a lot of those long, dragging, and annoying sections finally got taken care of. At this stage, all that's left is kind of the rigging and the last minute fabrication and outfitting, putting on some of the mats, some of the cosmetic stuff. I went ahead and put a shroud in there because we decided to put speakers, so there went that with those giant holes there. It was just a cheap speaker system off of Amazon. I'm really not all about the music on the water, but I know some people are, and just know that it's pretty easy to install one of those cheap units in there. There's this receiver right there in the front. The whole boat came out, in my opinion, pretty clean. This also didn't take very long to do. It was about 2 weeks of excessive attention, which would equal about a month or a month and a half for the average Joe with a day job and a family trying to get this done. One thing I don't have control over, though, is the outboards. I don't have any luck with them. At this point in time, because the rest of the boat's brand new, it's just easier to get a brand new motor. So we went and purchased a brand new 25 horse Gen 4 EFI with a power tilt. And normally boats like these come with a 40 horse minimum. Generally it's a 50, and that pushes 4 people in this small little boat pretty well. But here's the thing, the John boats, they operate a little bit better off lower horsepower than, say, the V-hull boats of the world. They just get on pad faster, and you need less horse to actually operate them. And if the boat is built as light as this one, then I anticipate this boat will push 2 people in a tournament load like nothing. Might not be the fastest thing on the lake, but you'll be on plane and you'll get to where you need to get to. If you're gonna go purchase a boat like this, I don't know what it would cost. I mean, the next closest thing to this is the Bass Tracker 165, I believe, and it's 20 grand. And I really don't know if that's even with all the fees and taxes. This thing was half that with the motor swap. Before the motor swap, we were actually looking pretty good in cost, like way under that, like 5 or 6. But the bigger defining feature for it to cost that less was I had to sacrifice my time to make this work. So it's either money or time, or in this case, a combination of both. If you don't have the money, but you're also not willing to spend the time it takes to make something like this, well then, I don't really know if you deserve a nice boat. But if you take the time, fishing and being on the water make you exponentially happier than any of your other hobbies, then I would say, yeah, it's worth it. A whole lot. Yeah, it was a little pain to put this thing together, but man, I had such a great day on the lake, and the boat performed exceptionally well. Got on plane almost immediately with the 25 horse. It had a little 45-pound Minn Kota edge, and I was pulling this boat at like 4.5 miles an hour, even in the wind. Like, the only thing I'm missing on this boat is like spot lock. But other than that, man, it's great. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I'm not a big fan of like the conservative builds that are simplistic that most people want. I like really complicated, advanced headache builds. But you know, every once in a while I get in a boat like this and I just can appreciate the simplicity and the ease of use and the well functioning and the fact that this thing is going to likely last a very, very long time. Since its debut, it has been in tournaments almost every weekend with the exception of like a month or 2 in the off season. It also gets taken to various trophy lakes throughout Arizona. It gets fished a lot. And the gentleman here who we gave the boat away to, he's had 0 complaints. Never has called me or texted me saying that anything with the boat has actually ever gone wrong. It has been durable and robust ever since its debut. Anyways, guys, that's how we rescued this 1648 John boat from being a permanent lawn ornament, eventually on its way to the compactor, the dump, into probably a better version fishing boat than it ever was to begin with. I hope this video inspires others to take on the task that we did here. If you want more specifics, there is a long form video of this, and there's also a complete build series on this boat. We also have master classes and a bunch of other stuff. Check us out, tbnation.net. Subscribe, like, all those great things. I'll see you on the next one.